All right, joining us now to continue this scintillating conversation, we have Art Laffer, former Reagan economist and Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient and author of the great new book called Taxes Have Consequences. Art, I know you can't help yourself. You probably heard the Scott Hodge interview. We're going to be much higher than the OECD. I mean, Bernie Sanders has this vision of Sweden. When you look at these numbers, I would take Sweden. Sweden is much lower than the United States. What do you think of that?
Sweden is one of the best countries in Europe, by the way.
Yes.
Sweden is one of the best countries in Europe. What he missed on this, by the way, what Scott Hodges and you didn't talk about, was the effect inflation has on not only capital gains, which is a lot of capital gains is illusory, but it also has a huge effect on the corporate tax because depreciation is not indexed for inflation. So replacement cost is a lot higher than the initial depreciation. So it's much, much worse, Larry. And I guess if I can get it from you and Scott and all that, I think Biden just goosed the geese that lay the golden eggs. How's that?
That was really bad.
I mean, it's awful.
Really
and
low
I just
class.
talked to my daughter Rachel out in Yeah, it is low class. I just talked to my daughter Rachel out in California, and capital gains is taxed at ordinary income rates out there. The highest capital gains tax in California is 13.3%. So add that on to all this other stuff, and you've got just a crazy, horrible mess. Yeah. And thank goodness the House will not put it through. But you know, we have to watch that election in 2024.
Indeed.
That's where we really could make a mistake and have a real problem if they get in control again fully in House and Senate.
So, Arthur, let's talk, switch gears, come back to this Saudi, OPEC plus Russian. They want to cut 1 million plus barrels of oil, take it off the market. I guess they're aiming for $100 oil. Let me just ask you, you used to do a lot of work on this. You know, there's fiscal considerations, yes. There's monetary considerations. What should the Federal Reserve do if, now, oil went up $5 today, so it's coming up, I guess, back towards $80 a barrel in West Texas crude. But if it went up, let's say, to $90 or $100 a barrel, or say 100 in round numbers, and, you know, if, it hasn't happened yet, what should the Federal Reserve response be to that, if anything?
Well, you know, the Federal Reserve response should be the same no matter what happens, Larry. They should guarantee the stability of the value of the U.S. dollar. You used to call it king dollar. I agree with it totally. It should be king dollar. We need to stabilize the U.S. dollar. I would prefer to see us go back to some sort of monetary standard. But if they don't do that, they can do it by changing the balance sheet of the Fed, by shrinking it dramatically. You know, these types of shocks are what caused the 1970s. If you remember the OPEC embargo in the U.S., the huge shock in the price of oil, I mean, it sent the price of oil back then up to $32 a barrel, which was huge back then. Those types of shocks do a lot of damage to the U.S. economy because we don't have energy independence any longer. Any type of increase in the price of oil has much more damage done to consumers than it does benefit to oil producers. So it's a net tax increase on the U.S. economy as well. We need to cut tax rates, not do this silly Biden stuff. We need to cut tax rates and get rid of the inflated Fed balance sheet and bring us back to stable prices and low taxes.
Well, so would you have the Fed withdraw reserves so that the oil price doesn't spread, or do nothing here?
You know, the Fed has to remain the lender of last resort. You know, when there's a financial crisis, as there is now, they must guarantee deposits. They've got to do that, Larry, within reason. I mean, they just have to. And when times of crisis, discount freely as the Fed balance sheet. But they must, over a very short period of time, a year or two, get that balance sheet down from $9 trillion down to effectively $2 or $3 trillion. And that would be the right thing for them to do, really shrink that balance sheet and stop inflation now, and then do fiscal policy to create the supply side boom, just like we did in Reagan's era, Larry. That's exactly what Volcker did, along with Ronald Reagan. We cut taxes and we had sound money, and boy, that led to a boom of incredible proportion.
So on this, let's go back to King Dollar. There's a lot of talk,
Yes.
Reporting experts saying King Dollar is being thrown off her throne. that China's yuan or deals between China and Saudi Arabia for oil sales would be priced in yuan. The Russians would love to make mischief.
Yep.
The so-called BRIC countries would like to make mischief and set up some sort of separate commodity zone. Then there's always been the European Union. But the dollar keeps, I don't know, whether it deserves it or not, the dollar is still number one. What do you make of this talk that King Dollar is going to evaporate, be thrown down or something? I don't know what.
Well, I don't think King Dollar is going to be thrown down. I think the dollar is going to jump off the throne if anything happens, Larry. It's not them doing it to us. It's us doing it to us. If we'd have had a stable dollar for the last years, we would keep King Dollar, and everyone would have to transact in U.S. dollars because we are the most sound, best-run economy in the world. But as you just saw in Scott Hodges' piece, we're the highest tax rates, if Biden had his proposals, highest tax rates in everything. And as I said, in California, it's even worse. You know, this is a terrible state, but do you remember the cartoon Pogo? Remember that cartoon strip? You know, Pogo goes up and looks in the mirror and says, I have seen the enemy, and it is us.
Yep.
We are behaving badly, and that's why we could lose the reserve currency status, not because of what Russia, China, and Iran are doing. They can't throw us off. Only we can jump off.
All right. I agree. Need good policies. Art Laffer, thanks ever so much.